Welcome back to the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, only NFL podcast. One of the hosts wants to take a bite out of CJ Ham. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. Carmen Vitali.
Yeah.
You didn't change your name, right? You just got married. You didn't change your
name. Legally, it's changed.
Okay. Well,
but no, professionally, no. We're sticking with Carmen Vitali.
Carmen Vitali is here again to help me preview the NFC North. So excited. Not just because you're here. This is a division that is near and dear to your heart. You are very familiar with all these teams, but because we've got news just in the brink of time. Literally, I was pushing this division and the AFC North back.
Yeah.
Because of the quarterback competitions.
Yes.
And I was convinced I have the Viking stuff. I had ready to go. I was ready to talk about both quarterbacks. And then literally an hour before we started taping, it was announced. Kyler Murray will be the quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings.
The football gods must love you, Mina.
What a blessing. So I figured we would start with the Vikings since it's easy, and maybe we can talk a little bit about how we got here, what it means, the offense. I've been following the Vikings beat reporters' accounts of practice scrimmages so closely.
Same.
And to put, I guess my read on it after talking to some of them is that kind of over the course of the last few weeks, it looked like Kyler clearly had the lead. And then there was a scrimmage, I believe.
This past weekend.
Kyler wasn't so great. So then there was a question, maybe this will drag out a little bit and maybe it'll go into the preseason. Not that the reporters thought that, I just think from the outside. But no, the Vikings decided to call it early. So let's just start there before we get into what this means for the offense, for the team. Obviously, when they traded for Kyler, or not traded for him, just signed him for nothing, I was a big fan of the move because it was so low cost, low risk, and because, he has been at minimum an average quarterback, which is obviously a vast improvement. What do you make of this? And also, like, as a reporter, what do you make of them announcing it now? Because I was a little surprised.
I know. I thought that, like, the decision should come sooner rather than later. And actually, I was on the Irish NFL show last week talking about how I think they would benefit from just making this decision early and making sure that Kyler knows he's the guy going forward and the team knows that he's the guy going forward, because even coming out of camp, like, all the players were insisting that this was still a competition and that they didn't know which way it was going and this, that, the other. And you want as much continuity and as many reps as possible with the guy that you're going to carry into the season as the starter. So I think that there's really nothing to be gained from, I guess, the outside noise of, like, is this happening? I think maybe there was stuff to be gained from JJ McCarthy's camp, and that, like, if he, like, really took this down to the wire, that maybe that there was something salvageable there. But at the end of the day, him losing this quarterback battle to Kyler Murray doesn't really bode well for kind of his tradability. And I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon. And I don't think that that's the feeling out of Minnesota either. So doing it now, I think, makes a lot of sense. And I'm glad that they did, because now we can get rid of that whole narrative and just focus on who this team is moving forward with Kyler Murray. And you kind of alluded to it. If he's even average, like, if we get the 2024 Kyler Murray that I think was 14th in EPA per play, this team can be fine. Like, this team could not only be fine, this team could potentially win the division. Like, I think I've gotten there as far as after, like, rewatching them, and like, that defense was so vastly underrated last year because of all of the offensive dysfunction.
Third in DVOA last year. Yeah, no, I mean, there's 2024 is a great earmark for if Kyler is anything like that.
Yeah.
He was 10th in QBR, 10th in completion percentage over expected, 7th in success rate. He's had such an odd career in Arizona because, he 2020, 2021, he looked so great. And then there were some pretty brutal injuries that affected him. 2024, it looked like a bounce back season with Drew Petzing. I mentioned some of the numbers. And then 2025 was a step back, both from a performance and an injury perspective. But, again, like, average is, I think, a completely realistic goal. I think it's going to be interesting to see what the offense actually looks like. And I think that's where giving him more reps or naming him the starter early is the right move, because from what I've gathered too, from reading, like, when he's not been great in camp, it has felt a little bit like still they're feeling things out and he's still not entirely comfortable in the offense. So I think it's probably something that Kevin O'Connell is going to want to devote as much time as possible to it. And the offense is going to be fascinating, right? Like, so when the signing happened, Carmen, there was a lot of talk about the quote unquote poor fit or the awkward fit, maybe is a better way to put it.
Mm.
Kevin O'Connell wants his quarterbacks under center, attacking the middle of the field, um, playing on time. And there's this Kyler has a reputation. Some of it is reputational, some of it is accurate. Doesn't really throw a lot over the middle of the field, primarily in the gun, right? And he has thrived in offenses where they're spreading things out. Do you feel that that reputation, or rather perception, is fair? Do you think that actually he is a good fit for this offense? Or conversely, do you think the offense has to evolve to accommodate him?
I mean, I think that with any quarterback, you're going to have some evolution. And I believe Kevin O'Connell understands that. And that's, you could see it even last year when he was trying to make JJ McCarthy work, just in the way that he pared down the offense. In fact, as the season got later, which is kind of when JJ McCarthy, you saw some maybe, I don't know, serviceable quarterback play out of JJ McCarthy at that point. But I do think that there is a fit within this offense with Kyler's athleticism and being able to kind of tilt defenses in that way. And the run game is just, it's like with Jordan Mason and with like Aaron Jones, what he has left. I think that that can be pretty dynamic in the backfield, and I think that
Yes.
can be harnessed. And then on top of that, I don't think we're talking enough about the receiver core that Kyler Murray is now going to have at his disposal. It not doesn't just include Justin Jefferson, who is arguably the best receiver in the league, but it's also Jawan Jennings is now part of this, and Jordan Addison. So for my money, those top three receivers, you're going to have to dare Kyler Murray to kind of push the ball down the field, right?
So
And
interesting.
and I in it's so far in training camp, from everything I've seen, he was the one pushing the ball down the field,
Okay.
whereas Kyler Murray was
So
kind of taking more of those check, or JJ McCarthy was taking
this
more of those
more
check
risks.
downs,
Or
more of the
okay,
safe
so Kyler
stuff.
was pushing the ball down the field more.
Kyler, yeah, did I say JJ?
No, you know, it's just, there first of all, there's like 3 JJs on this team
There's so
between
many JJs.
Jefferson, JJ McCarthy, and Juwan Jennings. So Kyler, you saw in training camp, it felt like was taking more risks throwing the
Was
ball.
taking more risk with the ball, was pushing the ball down the field, and whereas JJ McCarthy had the higher completion
Oh,
percentage, but he
yeah.
was kind of throwing all that underneath stuff. And kind of, maybe I don't know if he was trying to make it look like he was doing well, and maybe it wasn't, but it was Kyler Murray that was kind of pushing the ball
Yeah.
down the field.
Well,
And I think you're gonna need him to do that, and I think he's willing to do that.
I think that is such a fascinating question this season because Kyler Murray, like the mystery of where Kyler Murray's deep ball went is a great like chicken or egg question.
Yeah, sure.
Because so Kyler Murray early in his career, amazing deep, but you think about all these plays outside of structure, launching bombs downfield to DeAndre Hopkins and company. And then it kind of went away, right?
Yeah.
And both the attempts and then also his success throwing downfield. So on one hand, you can say, well, maybe some of it was his injuries, not being entirely comfortable. Maybe this is who he is. But then on the other hand, and this is where the chicken and egg comes in, you can say, well, the Arizona offensive line disintegrated.
Yeah.
They didn't have great wide receivers. It started flowing through Trey McBride, a tight end, became the focal point of the offense. Marvin Harrison Jr., that never really clicked for whatever reason. So now you kind of are putting him in a control situation where you have an amazing group of wide receivers
Yes.
who can win downfield, Addison Jefferson in particular, and then, what should be at least a competent offensive line. I know the interior has
Right.
some questions, but if Darisaw is healthy, there's still better
That's
than what Kyler had. So it's kind of like we're gonna find out, Carmen, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, okay, was the deep ball disappearing because of situation? And so it also was Drew Petzing's offense, or was it
right.
Kyler? Well, we'll see, I guess. But I think you're right to point out that's sort of to me where the ceiling on this lies of an offense is like I think the floor has been lifted a great deal, but if it's going to hit that ceiling with Kyler,
Yeah.
he has to be able to throw the ball downfield the way he did early in his career.
He does, and you hope that this offensive line is going to give him the chance to do that, because that was another part of the issue with this Minnesota offense last year was it's 17 different offensive line combinations,
Yeah.
and they, because of the Darisaw injury and then later the Brian O'Neill injury, they did just extend Brian O'Neill. So I have to think that reading between the lines, that's a vote of confidence in his health. And then if Darisaw can stay healthy, then you really do give Kyler Murray a shot here to be able to, hold that ball, let those plays develop, and get the ball down the field to one of these great receivers. And then you have kind of the underneath option in TJ Hawkinson, who's another year removed from his injury. So you hope that he can kind of be that safety blanket underneath for Kyler.
Yeah.
But I think that this offense can be extremely dynamic, and you can kind of harness Kyler Murray's skill set and his athleticism, and maybe again just kind of pushing him to push the ball down the field a little bit
Yeah.
more, and it can be very dynamic.
The athleticism brings me to something you also mentioned, which is the run game. And I think
Yeah.
this might be the thing I'm actually weirdly most intrigued by
You
in
know?
Minnesota because I don't think I've talked about this, but one of the hirings that flew under the radar a little bit was adding Frank Smith from Miami. And I've talked about how, his title is assistant head coach, but he, as I understand from asking around, is basically in charge of the run game.
Nice, yeah.
So, the Minnesota run game has legitimately improved during Kevin O'Connell's tenure.
Mhm.
It's still not, like, one of the best in football, but it has crept to kind of just
Yeah.
outside that top 10. I think the thought here is everybody wants a piece of this Miami run game, literally, like, every coach,
Yes.
everyone's talking about it. So, let's bring in, you know, Frank Smith from Miami. We worked closely with Mike McDaniel. And also, I think it could hypothetically not solve, but help blend those Kyler with Kyler who's more of a gun, maybe pistol quarterback, get him involved in the
Yeah.
run game because the Miami run game, for those who didn't watch it closely, all the crazy motions and formations and personnel groupings and whatnot were part of what made it so effective. But that was a run game out of the gun and pistol, right?
Yes.
So now you bring that over, and now you have a quarterback who's actually a threat to run way more than Tua Tagovailoa was in Miami. I'm kind of intrigued by the potential. They also drafted Max Bredesen, who's going to play fullback for them out of Michigan. Sorry, CJ Ham. Maybe he'll be in the mix. Josh Oliver is a very good blocking tight end. There's a lot of components here, I think, to what could potentially be a really interesting rushing attack.
I think it flies under the radar too, just how often Kevin O'Connell does like to utilize multiple back sets. Like they were top 10 in 21 usage last year. And so that kind of lends itself to maybe a running back by committee sort of situation. But I think more than that, it incorporates the fullback, which is music to my ears. I love when we get fullbacks involved because, again, you're talking about that Miami offense. You're talking about San Francisco and what they do with out of their multiple back sets. And I think that that's something that can, again, harness Kyler Murray's skill set and just make this offense the most dynamic. And that marrying both of these, like this downfield passing attack with potentially this run game where you don't know where the ball's going or if Kyler Murray is keeping it himself or any of that kind of stuff. When you have multiple backs on the field, I mean, that to me can help Kyler Murray too, to that for that matter, and really make this offense just pretty potent. Like I said, I just keep finding reasons to believe in the
Well,
Minnesota
there's
Vikings.
I mean, the potential, I think, which we've outlined here is
Right.
exciting, but we
Yes.
should also hit the downside here,
Sure.
right? Like, so one, I think, while I do think maybe the scheme fit thing can be a little overplayed because, in 2024, Kyler did play under center a lot with Drew Petzing. He is not a quarterback who's going to throw a lot over the middle of the field. That's just not. I mean, a lot of that has to do with his size, right? Um, so there could be a world in which it just doesn't click with him and Kevin O'Connell. There could be a world in which he gets hurt again. Kyler Murray's
Yeah.
had a lot of injuries, which might be another reason why they hang on to JJ McCarthy, right? And then I think the offensive line, you could see the interior struggling
Yeah.
and, um, you know, Kyler maybe struggling with pressure and
Yeah.
particularly interior pressure. So there's definitely a lot of potential downside scenarios here, right? Like we're going back to 2024. Last year Kyler was not. It's funny because there's this perception that like Jacoby came in and the offense was so much better, which is not really true over the course of it. Just he started out hot. Ultimately, they were both pretty bad.
Mhm.
But, there's a world in which instead of getting average quarterback play from Kyler Murray, average is actually the past, and the new normal is in the, 20 to 25 range. Totally possible.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's the biggest thing I look at for this offense and if it's going to work is that offensive line. And then the interior is the biggest question mark, right? And then you have the center quarterback exchange where it's not like Kyler Murray is Jared Goff where he can kind of withstand like any sort of center. You want the center to take as much off Kyler Murray's plate as possible is what I'm getting at. And that I don't know is going to be the case in Minnesota.
I
So
know.
I'm yeah
Yes.
with Brendel. So it's one of those things where if everything goes right, and this is kind of an overarching theme I feel like for the division overall, like as I was going through all of this, where it's like if everything goes right and exactly according to plan, great, this could work. But if there's any sort of adversity or if there's if there's an influx of injury or whatever, like none of these teams have these contingency plans that I'm overly thrilled with. Other than I guess the Minnesota Vikings and just being able to rely on this defense to will you
All right.
to
Well,
9 games, which is what they did last year.
let's talk about the defense. So, they made my top 10 defenses pod. I think I had them 6. It's funny though, when I was doing that, when I took a step back and looked at some of the changes in the depth chart, I felt like a little bit more nervous about the personnel and some of the
Mhm.
changes, but
Yeah.
then I keep going back to it's I think Brian Flores has earned the, like, benefit of the doubt
Yes.
on defense at this point. Do you think that's enough, or is there anything about this defensive depth chart that concerns you?
I mean, yeah, of course, there's things about this defensive depth chart that concern me. But when you get rid of Javon Hargrave and you no longer have John Allen, and like so much of what made you so stout up front is no longer there, that's scary to me. And then to pass that off to a rookie who has been dealing with foot issues a lot of his career for the last few years, and Caleb Banks. I mean, Caleb Banks is an absolute monster, and watching his Florida tape when he was healthy was amazing. And he was like the most polarizing prospect I think I watched in this draft class because I was like, oh my God, when he's good, he's insane. And he is exactly what Brian Flores wants in the front of that unit. But can he stay healthy? And that's been the biggest question mark. Because if he's not, you don't have a whole lot else that can really get that push up front. Now, I mean, can you rely on maybe your secondary, your linebacker level, or like Andrew Van Ginkel? They're priming Andrew Van Ginkel 2.0 and Jake Goldegg because he's
Yes.
gotten snaps at inside linebacker, outside backer, all of those things. So that makes me excited. And going back and watching this defense, like the best way I can describe them and Brian Flores in general is like they are just so blissfully unaware that they have any sort of limitations. Like the things that they do, the things that they ask their guys to do, the things that Brian Flores asks his guys to do. I don't know, like as a quarterback, if you're sitting back there and you're trying to read even post snap, it's impossible. There's so much movement pre snap. None of these guys are necessarily set. You have again, they have no qualms with making Harrison Smith start on the line of scrimmage and then go cover a deep half. And it's like if you know that
Team
these guys
now.
I know, like if you have no fear,
Yeah.
if you are not aware of your limitations at
Well,
all, like how do you deal with that?
I think that raises an interesting question, which is so, I've talked a lot about Vikings Divas. If you listen to this podcast, like they are extreme outliers in pretty much everything. They play
Yes.
a ton of base defense.
They
They
do.
uh, rush 5 and 6 at the highest rates in the NFL. They blitz on early downs. They play split safety behind the blitz. They're constantly, Carmen alluded to this, constantly second and third level defenders on the line of scrimmage, et cetera, dropping, sometimes going. It's pure chaos, right?
Yeah.
I think the interesting question that I'm still pondering is like, who is essential to that chaos? Um, if you take out Harrison Smith, for example, can Josh Metellus still be your jack of all trades, does a million things? If you um, don't have Jonathan Grenard anymore, are you as
Yeah.
comfortable with, the rest of your passer? It's
I know.
just they
I,
seem to be able to survive everything, but
yeah.
I will say, and I think this is very important to the chaos in the formation, how they do it all. I do like that they kept their backers. They brought Eric Wilson back, and Blake Cashman has been great for them. You talked about adding Golday, who's kind of more of the Van Ginkel hybrid role. But I do think that if they had lost the linebackers, I'd be a little bit more worried about their ability to pull it all off.
Same. And I appreciate I think that level you need guys in the middle that are directing this traffic, like, you just do, because it's just it's absolute chaos, but, like, in the best way, and it's completely intentional and on purpose. So I appreciated that too, and, like, guys like Ivan Pace Jr., like, he came out the gate just, like, really understanding this defense, and I just there's so much versatility within this defense that I think everybody is cross-trained at every different position that they possibly could play, which is, I guess, all of them. And the one thing about last year that was especially important to me, or like it stuck out to me, was we it's no secret that they blitz at the highest rate and they do all those things that you mentioned before, and that they've been doing that for the last few years. But this year I feel like you really got the blitz to pressure, like, translation. You really got it to
Mhm.
translate this year, because so often for the first couple of years under Brian Flores, sure, they were blitzing at the highest rate in the league, but they were like fifth, seventh in pressure rate. And that's no longer the case. Like, that wasn't the case last year. Like, there, that pressure was translating, or that blitz was translating. And so I like, they figured something out in that regard, and keeping those guys in the middle of the field in particular to kind of direct all of this when it does look like such chaos, I think was vital, and it makes me feel a lot better about it, even if I'm a little concerned about probably the front. I don't think Joshua Tellis is necessarily a Harrison Smith level, but I do think that he's a really great safety that I like people are underrating. So and then it comes back to Brian Flores just being an absolute madman, and also, like, tinkering every year with what he does.
Right, maybe there'll be new twists. I mean, it's yeah, like, I don't think it's not gonna be exactly the same if Harrison Smith isn't there. I think we might see a little bit more nickel, a little bit less dime. The cornerback room, they added they've had a lot of underrated like Isaiah Rodgers was really good for them. Brett Pierre was a nice little under the radar signing. Byron Murphy's been awesome for them. So maybe that's like a tweak. You get a little bit more nickel, maybe you know what I mean? Like, there'll be I think as far as I expect them to once again be a top 10 unit, as I said. But as far as can they overcome some of the losses naturally and veterans, leaving, young players are going to have to step up, right?
Yeah.
Dallas Turner, who I talked about on the
Yes.
NFC X Factors, like they're betting on him to
Mhm.
become Jonathan Grenard 2.0,
Th
basically.
that's the only reason that you could afford to get rid of Jonathan Grenard, I think. Like, as soon as they
Yeah,
did that, my first thought was like, "Oh, Dallas Turner must be real they must really have a lot of confidence that he's gonna take that leap." And actually, it wasn't this past summer, but the last summer, I was with both Jonathan Grenard and Dallas Turner at a pass rush summit in Arizona, and the way that they were working together, and how much I talked to Dallas about how much it means to have Jonathan Grenard kind of alongside him and be able to work with him and learn from him and all of that kind of stuff. So he's learned a lot from Jonathan Grenard himself, to the point where it sounds like the Vikings are like, yeah, all right, well, the student become the master. The young
yeah.
grasshopper has grown up, and
Yeah,
you're
I
like,
mean,
all right, I hope so.
he was productive down the stretch last year, started racking up sacks,
Yeah,
went back and watched all of them for the NFC X Factors pod, and some of the production, was a little bit matchup based, and he definitely has a ton of juice, and it's, like, very visible,
yeah,
but I do think still, hasn't quite tapped into his full potential as a pass rusher,
yeah.
so but that's a big pivot point. Is Caleb Banks gonna be healthy is a big pivot point because, like you said, if he's healthy, he has the potential to be the most disruptive player in the draft, like, truly. Like,
Truly.
they just don't make guys that size who move like
Who
he
move
does,
like that.
who are, like,
Yeah.
built like Calais Campbell,
Yeah.
but he's gotta stay healthy. And then whatever happens at safety, if it's Jacoby Thomas or Jay Ward or whatever, there's a little bit of a youth movement going on at
You
multiple
know?
positions, but I think at this point, Brian Flores has earned the benefit of the doubt and has demonstrated the ability to compensate for weaknesses, at all three levels. So, and hopefully without having, if they don't have bottom of the league quarterback play, get better field position, things like that. So one of the more intriguing teams in football, certainly the Minnesota
Truly.
Vikings. Let's do the Lions next.
Lions. The poor lions.
Every time I start talking myself, I was first of all, full disclosure, we're gonna rank the teams at the end. I did not rank them beforehand. I wrote down, "Let's talk this out,"
Yeah,
and
okay.
then because
I'm yeah, no, 100%.
division is absolutely inscrutable. you've got one team with a great defense and question marks on offense, and then you have 3 teams with, I think, great offenses and massive question marks on defense.
Correct.
It's like, so one of those teams is the Lions. So the Lions were in the top 10 offenses. The aforementioned Drew Petzing is
It's
their
not there.
offensive coordinator. Let's start there. What do you? Because it's so funny, dude. Because like, I think we think of the Lions offense last year and we're like, that was what a downfall. They really missed Ben Johnson. And then you look at the numbers and they were like top
Yes.
7 in everything. So
That was honestly, I fell victim to that, and, like, I didn't really I thought that there was a huge drop off last year, and then I go through that, I'm like, "Wait, really?" Every other stat that I came up with, I was just like, "Wait, really?" Like, they were I'm very interested to see what Drew Petzing kind of brings to this offense, and especially now where your offensive line is so in flux, right? And it's not just because of the Cade Mays injury, but you have Penei Sewell going from he's trying to Tristan Wirfs this whole thing, going from right to left, which is hard. Like I'm
yeah,
tired of these guys making it look easy and like making
I
me eat my
know.
words about
He
how
has played it, so
he
there's
has played it.
experience there.
Yes.
Yeah, but that is a big change, and then it's also a big change because, you're like, "Okay, Tate Ratledge on the right side, year 2, but he gets to play next to Penei Sewell, psych, now he's gonna play next to a rookie." So
Now
it's
he's
just
right.
the youth, and now a lot of questions. Mahogany had a bit of a step back year. You mentioned Cade Mays, the center, getting hurt. I mean, this is I've been saying this. It is actually, I think, what really flew under the radar is that the offense was so impressive in spite of how bad
In spite
the
of
line
how
was next year.
yes,
It's one of those
7th
things
in
where we like
7th in offensive DVOA?
crazy. We just think of like the Lions and we're like, of course the line is good. Sometimes there's teams where the reputation of a position group or a unit sort
Mhm.
of continues beyond the performance. It was like this in Seattle with the defense for like years where people are
Yeah.
like, "They're an elite defense." Like, no, they don't actually. They're really bad at the end of the Pete Carroll era. But
Mm,
anyways, the offensive line last year, I mean, the numbers are atrocious.
there.
Jared Goff went from having the 27th lowest quick pressure rate to like 7th in the league. The adjusted line yards, pardon me, which is FTN's like run blocking metric. They went from first in 2023, first in 2024, down to 20th last year. Like it was testament to Goff, honestly, and the skill players that they were able to keep that thing going because
And
like, yeah, it's still a question.
I mean, even more like rudimentary than that, like you saw it show up in kind of the step back they took in the run game. And like part of that is Ben Johnson's departure, sure, but also like they had 100, just over 120 yards rushing per game. That was 14th in the league, which is not at all like you went from the Detroit Lions being known for the bully ball that they play and their commitment to the run. And basically Ben Johnson just transported that to Chicago now. But and we'll get to that. But like the way that the offensive line, I think 10 different combinations across the
Crazy.
season because of all of these injuries, it really manifested itself in those ways of, hey, Jared Goff was under a little bit more pressure. He had to kind of make more things happen with, on the fly and couldn't count on that clean pocket. But then it also showed up in the run game, which wasn't terrible, but it was absolutely middling for a team that had been known for it. So that was, and yeah, like I'm with you where I'm just like, "Oh, yeah, Detroit has a good offensive line." Wait, no?
Yeah, they're actually good in spite of it
They're
kind of
good in
right
spite
now,
of it.
right, which again, credit to Goff, honestly.
Yes.
And Gibbs, who just got paid. One of the things I think is interesting, Drew Petzing coming from Arizona, assumption is they're gonna lean. I mean, the Lions love using 12 personnel. Petzing was kind of the OG, like not OG, but like Arizona used 13 personnel, meaning 3 tight ends at a pretty high rate. The Lions added, they have Tyler Conklin now as the 3rd tight
Yeah.
end, in addition to Laporte, who's coming back, it's big, and Brock Wright, who's a blocker. But, and Dan Pizzuta actually alluded to this when we did our X Factors pod. It's a little bit of an issue, which is the Lions are really, really good at passing out of multiple tight end sets, but actually not that great running. They were last year 2nd in EPA per play passing, which is awesome, 28th running.
Oh,
So Jahmyr Gibbs, when you kind of partition out the numbers, is much better at running the football when they spread things out a little
mhm.
bit. And also now with Montgomery back, he is going to ostensibly get more, even though they added Pacheco, more runs. So I do wonder, like, Jahmyr Gibbs is I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown, it's so funny. We're like, "Jahmyr Gibbs is the best player." We're like, "Amon-Ra St. Brown." No.
Yeah, he might have something to say
But I do
about that.
wonder if, like, if there's a little bit of hesitation to lean too far into the multiple tight ends thing because you do wanna set up Gibbs himself. Like, so just his numbers again, to narrow it down to him, 49% success rate running out of 11, which is ridiculous. 36 running out of 12, which is not so great.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, it's do you rob Peter to pay Paul, to borrow a, coaching term? And as far as, like, you can run 12 personnel because of the guys you have, but then you also I mean, like, they love Isaac Slough so much, and, like, I do too. He's such an explosive little receiver, and it's one of those things where you have him and Amon-Ra St. Brown, like, lean into that passing attack, and is Joe Petson gonna do that? And it like, especially if you know that Jahmyr Gibbs can run out of 11 very effectively. I also think, like, and this could have been a symptom just of the issues along their offensive line and all of the kind of injuries that they had. But there was a kind of tendency to then lean on some of that jumbo personnel to kind of get the run
yeah,
game going a little bit more. I
which
think
they were good at.
they were good at. It was like I think they like ran it the seventh most in the league or something along
Yeah.
those lines. And they're really good at that because despite the fact that there was so much and there has been so much like inconsistency along the offensive line, you still do have kind of a deep group where you can call on an extra blocker, an extra lineman to get out there and kind of kickstart this thing. And that's kind of maybe that was also Dan Campbell's kind of fail safe or pull safe when it came to when he took over play calling and all of that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think that there is a way to finagle this with Drew Petzing that you can minimize all of the
Yeah.
question marks you have along the offensive line because of what your skill players bring to this offense and how potent it can be. And having a veteran quarterback that has seen it all, done it all, and has really kept this offense afloat through everything.
Yeah, I mean, Petzing with Jared Goff we talked about, like, the potentially questions around the scheme fit with O'Connell and Kyler Murray. Now Petzing goes to a different quarterback, same division. It should be a really good match. Like, when they made that hire, I know Cardinals fans are ready to kick him out the door, but, like, I was like, "That makes sense." Like, his
Yeah.
offense is exactly right for Jared Goff. I don't think they're gonna reinvent the wheel. I know I talked
Mm-mm.
about the personnel stuff, but I don't think it'll be that different from what we've seen. Very high under center rates, very
Yes.
high play action, very high throwing over the middle of the field. Should be fine. I think the offensive line is the only thing for me that's like the difference between is this the 10th best offense versus a top 5 offense will go where the right side of the offensive line goes.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic. The defense, I have serious I mean, I'm gonna say this, well, Lions fans, before you get mad, I'm gonna say this about every remaining team. So,
That's true. That's true. That's the story of these
uh,
other of these teams, and a lot of it has to do with injury, which is also the case for the Lions, who can't field a working secondary to save their lives.
I know for all the attention the Niners get for their injuries, it just feels like this Niners, not Lions defense hasn't been healthy for years.
Years.
And, like, so up front, largely the same. Another team that plays a ton of base defense. You have Malcolm Rodriguez, good old friend, as a third linebacker when they do that. But otherwise, same defensive tackle group, which is good. See if Tally Williams can take another step. DJ Wanham. So the search to find someone who rushes past their opposite Aiden Hutchinson continues. You have DJ Wanham. They also drafted Derek Moore, who's a very productive pass rusher out of Michigan. I feel good about the front seven.
I do too. I was just gonna say, like, if there's anything I feel okay about defensively, it is the front seven, and that like the numbers back that up even from last year. Just like how it was another one of those things where I was looking through some of the stats and I was like, oh, okay, so sixth in tackle for loss percentage, they're tied for fourth in sack rate from last year, ninth in defensive DVOA on the entire season. But it was just like the doom and gloom of this was the explosive rate that they allowed and the points that they allowed, which was because of that explosive rate, which was because of the back level. And it's just how much can your front seven really make up for the ability to just throw over top of these guys and score.
So the back level.
Yeah.
Woof woof.
Woof woof.
All right. So first of all, I know Terry Arnold was not good last year, and like, so I'm not like saying he's some great loss. However,
Do you know
Uh,
that the coaches didn't know that they were letting him go?
really?
Yeah, that's what I found out. I was like, "Oh," like, there were coaches that found out on Twitter that they were releasing Terrion Arnold.
I did enjoy Kelvin Shepard being like saying with it like in a more polite way, he Terry Arnold wasn't good last year. I feel
Right,
like
he was like, "I
he said
mean."
that. He didn't say it that way.
Right.
I don't wanna but he was just like he wasn't lighting the world on fire. Alright. So I mean, I'm still trying to figure out exactly what the starting composition will be. I know, DJ Reed returns. Opposite him, I guess maybe Rakyasin, who honestly was not that bad, is the leader of the clubhouse and is a good fit for it's a very press man heavy defense. Maybe McCreary slides inside. They drafted Keith Abney the second. Ennis Rakestraw has been hurt his entire
His
career.
entire career, the poor guy.
Graphic. Um, Safety. Do you know who's starting? So, Kirby Joseph's injury status remains absolutely which is just such a bummer.
It
And
is.
then Brian Branch, actually, I looked up his timeline because they're a little bit more I think he's the one who's more likely to return.
Yeah,
He tore his Achilles when was it? December, right? So it was late in the season.
yeah.
And I think probably early-ish in the season could come back, but, like, it's a tough injury. So you're looking at let's see, I'm looking at the names. Christian Izen was from the
Yeah,
Bucks.
from the Bucks, yeah.
Chuck Clark, I
Who
mean,
kinda got cross-trained. Christian hasn't got kinda cross-trained, I feel like, at corner and safety, so you can kind of make him one of those Swiss Army knives on the backside. Yeah, I mean, Avonte Maddox, maybe. The interesting thing, Dan Campbell he just said it today. Dan Campbell said it today where because everybody has kind of been like, all right, you're talking about how Brian Branch is on a good timeline and like his rehab's going well and this, that, the other. And then like when you were talking about Kirby Joseph, it's basically like, I don't know. So then Dan Campbell came out today and said he's going through some personal stuff, but his rehab is on track. And I'm just like, okay, well, what does that mean? And I even tried to do some digging and I was texting some people and I was just like, is Kirby Joseph going to be okay? And all I got was like, I hope so. And I was like, okay,
man,
all right.
that's
So
a bummer.
it's a huge bummer, but like the way that Dan was talking about it was like they absolutely could both return this season. And that's what you hope for, but how do you even stay afloat without those guys? And again, with like the explosive rate that you allowed last year and that was with them at some point in the season. It's
I think the optimistic case for the Lions, you score so many points that you're just, playing a lot of run
I'm
defense
also
or
gonna say that for
not
other
I mean,
teams in this
not
division.
yeah, right, I didn't mean to run defense, I meant opportunities to rush the passer, and
Yes.
I think that's been a priority for them too, like, when you look at the way they've approached their front,
Right.
it seems like they would like to be able to get more pressure with 4, maybe blitz a little bit less, maybe put a little less onus on the corners, so I guess okay, I know this has sounded really negative, uh there's player I mean, Aiden Hutchinson's awesome. I'm still Lim McNeil's awesome.
Yes.
Derek Moore is a fun young player. I think the linebackers, Jack Campbell is obviously really good. I think the optimistic case, let's do this. What is required for things to go right for the Lions defense? Like in your mind, what has to click in this group? Who's like one player you're like, if this guy either takes the leap or lives up to his potential or comes out of nowhere, then I feel good about this unit.
There's a couple, and I do think one of the things I wanted to point out just kind of about this front in general was like they were tied for 6th in quarterback pressure rate last year, despite being 12th in blitz rate. So they are getting pressure with 4, and I think you have to continue doing that. And I feel good about the front 7. The one guy that I factors, I mean, both obviously in the pass rush because of the way that they can use him, but more in the run game too, is Jack Campbell. I mean,
Mm,
this is a guy that I talked to Aaron Glenn about when they drafted him at length. And all Aaron Glenn told me like at the time was like, this guy's gonna outlast me. Like this is our guy for 10 years. This is our middle linebacker for 10 years. And against the run, last year, Jack Campbell was excellent. And so if you can marry those 2 and you can get a good pass rush and mitigate the run underneath, then if your only weakness is the fact that you have maybe some of these explosives available
right.
for teams, I think that's best case scenario because like you're just not going to be able to count on the secondary, but that's nothing new with the Lions.
Yeah.
So they've still been serviceable, and this defense has still been decent at times with the buy-in of the front seven. But I think that needs to be all encompassing against the run and the pass.
Yeah, I've seen some accounts that they'll play more nickel as well, so maybe a little bit like this is a defense that played a ton of base defense, so definitely Campbell being the onus on him and run defense is really significant, and he's excellent at it, to your
Yeah.
point. Yeah, and, like, Branch has the earlier Branch comes back, the
Yes,
better, I feel, because he's a really special player.
he really is.
So I think, you know, it's kinda like we'll get to there with Micah and the Packers, but it's like if it so to answer my own question, if either Wanham or Derek Moore, gives you 8 plus sacks, and Branch comes back before sometime in the first quarter of the season,
Yeah.
I think I'll feel okay about some
Yeah.
of the weaknesses, but those
I
are big
think
ifs.
yeah, it's treading water until Branch can come back.
All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and let's do the Chicago Bears next. All right, we're back. Bears, another team with a sick offense and a very dubious defense, in my estimation.
Yeah.
Really, all these three of these teams. Let's start with the good news. Let's start with the offense. The offense is awesome and fun.
It is,
And
which
last
is
year,
weird. It's a weird
yeah,
thing.
right,
As someone who grew up in
experience.
Chicago, experiencing, fun and interesting and, again, dynamic offense is not something I'm used to.
I want to ask you about a quote I saw from Caleb that we played on NFL Live, where he talked about how it's a really great clip. He talks, it was from, I think, earlier in the off season, but he talks about how last season it was like he was like kind of treading water, trying to
He
understand
was drinking through a
the
fire
offense.
hose. Yes.
Yeah, like
Yes.
just so much was on his plate. The
Yes.
offense was so different.
Yeah.
There's so much complexity. And now I'm paraphrasing, but he said, now I feel like I can focus on what the defenses are doing and like reading coverages and understanding
Yeah.
disguise and whatnot. So I was wondering if you could speak to like his evolution
Yeah.
and like what you're seeing from him this offseason as someone who's got boots on the ground versus maybe last offseason when he was still learning.
I have to tell you, last training camp was horrendous. Like the way, like it was a hard
Like a
watch every
mess.
single day. It was a really hard watch. The procedural penalties were insane. It was very clear that Caleb Williams didn't really know what he was calling. He didn't really like. He wasn't even really relaying things correctly. The communication was horrendous. All of the things that could possibly go wrong. But like I sat there and having watched Ben Johnson kind of make the switch to offensive coordinator in Detroit and how that was really rocky in the beginning with Jared Goff, I was like not hitting the panic button a lot in a lot of the ways that the Chicago media was and Chicago fans were. Rightfully so. Again, it was horrendous looking, but Ben was very transparent throughout that entire process, saying, I am overloading him. I'm not expecting him to succeed right away. I'm not expecting him to even look good right now. I'm trying to figure out how much he can handle. And from there, that's how I'll build my offense. That's how I'll build my playbook for the season. That's how I'll build my game plan week in and week out. And it looked like it. So then this year, fast forward to this year, it is night and day. I
Really?
mean, I won't say that there aren't procedural penalties here and there, and there aren't kind of some missed assignments here and clearly some routes that aren't run correctly. And that, sure, that's training camp, that's installs, that's whatever. The decisiveness of Caleb Williams is palpable. The way that he just gets into the huddle and he communicates what he needs to, and you can see his eyes moving, you can see his head move, like he knows what he's supposed to do. And that was night and day from last year. I think that there's a lot of off-season work that went into this too. I mean, there were like people like were walking in on Ben sleeping in the office in April, and you were just like, you absolute sicko. Like, what? I mean, compliment. I keep calling Ben a psycho, but like in the best way. So this is an offense that has put in a lot of work in the off season. And Colson Loveland was telling us too about how much Caleb Williams like was working with the receivers. He was flying guys out to California to work with them to make sure that the timing was down. Guys like Luther Burden, who I mean, he's injured right now, but he should be back soon. We'll see how long he's out. He's not lacking for any sort of confidence at this point. Now that he has also been in the system for a year, it's just you can see how everybody kind of knows what to
Yeah,
expect.
that's really exciting. I mean,
It
the
is.
Bears I was funny, I was looking at, penalties recently, and the Bears had so many penalties in the first half of the offensive penalties in the first half of the season, and, it's like the Bears and the Jags, right? The 2 teams with the new play callers, where the quarterbacks were kinda still acclimating to the new offenses. Everybody was acclimating, so I think year 2 with Ben Johnson, this is all really exciting to hear if you're a Bears fan.
It is.
As far as, like, where Caleb has to get better, we've talked about it a lot, just
A
the easy
lot.
stuff.
Yeah.
The big stuff, he does the hard stuff really well and the easy stuff not so well, and
Yeah.
that's reflected in the numbers. He was tied for the 3rd most explosive plays of any quarterback in football behind only Drake May and Josh Allen. He was 3rd in QBR under pressure, 20th kept clean. He was 6th in QBR versus the blitz, but then 32nd in
Mhm.
off target rate on short throws. It's just like,
Yeah.
he did everything. He made like all the difficult stuff. He was able to generate explosives and do really cool things, and then I think just down to down accuracy, you don't need to hear me talk about that for the 20 millionth time. It's, like, pretty obvious.
I mean, that's my biggest thing too, is as someone who was at at most of these games, and just I hindsight will let you forgive what you went through watching like quarters 1 through 3 of these games because of the result. You know that they're like they had these late quarter or late game heroics, these fourth quarter heroics, then they came back and they won the game and this, that, the other. But when I tell you a hard watch was quarters 1 through 3, and the numbers back it up too. I mean, it's just it like it was so hard because it was so start stop, and it was hard on Ben Johnson too because he could get into no sort of like play calling rhythm, and that was the biggest thing where I was like, you need to be able to just move the ball methodically down the field, do the easy things a little bit better, a little bit more consistently. I love Ben Johnson's though just almost defiant commitment to the run, which is again what we saw in Detroit, and it now has carried over into Chicago,
Yeah,
where even if the run wasn't working, Ben was like, "Well, I've got no other choice at this point
right,
because Caleb, it's not fourth quarter Caleb yet, so I
right,
need to tread water somehow." And and
and they were
and they did. Yeah,
dominant on the
dominant.
ground,
They were
dominant offensive
dominant on
line,
the ground.
dominant, like, yards before contact. Ben, one of the things I really like, I was looking at, FTN Fantasy has, like, where they rank in various go for it rates and whatnot.
Yeah.
2nd in run rate on 2nd and long,
Yeah.
and then 2nd in go for it late rate. So a lot of the reason time they were comfortable running in 2nd long was him knowing we're using 4 downs here,
Yes.
which is a very progressive way to, call it offense.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean the run game, there's some changes with the offensive line, that I want to get to in a second because that is a little bit of a concern, but I do still think that they'll be very good, especially if the passing game is a little bit more efficient. And as far as that efficiency goes, you talked about Luther Burden, who was phenomenal with the ball in his hands. Rome Odunze was hurt last year. I think there's hope that maybe if he's a little bit healthier, he can live up to his draft status.
Yeah.
And Colston Loveland in the second half of the season slash postseason emerged as one of the best downfield threats as a tight end in
Yep.
football. I was looking at his splits because weeks 10 through especially as the season went along, and then in the postseason he was massive for them. And a couple things. I mean, the second again week 10 through the divisional round, he was 2nd in yards amongst tight ends, behind only Trey McBride in first downs. He averaged 9.52 air yards per attempt, way up from the first half of the season, which would have been generously first over the course of the entire season. And then one thing that really caught my eye in terms of his usage, Carmen,
Mhm.
in the first half of the season, he was lined up, he was split out wide just 9% of the time. In the second half of the season, that jumped to 26% of the time, as well as he took a jump in the slot,
Yeah.
which is interesting 'cause he's actually, I think, proved to the world that he's a good blocker. And that was a
Yes.
really cool and important development because of
In
how
the beginning of the season, especially, yes, when he's
yes, it's like
attached to the formation. Yes.
they're very good at getting defenses to play base and throwing on them.
Yep.
But basically, he kind of became their number one wide receiver. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that and like year 2. I mean, that was all year 1 for a tight end, which is crazy.
I mean, that's why Ben Johnson wanted him so bad. I really do think that Colson Loveland is the key to this entire offense for so many different reasons, and I've detailed it a few times now, just why it's so important to have a guy like Colson Loveland who obviously is a receiving threat, but is a willing blocker. Like his block, he's not an elite blocker yet. And it's not to say he can't get there, but Ben Johnson is willing to ISO him against DNs. And if that's the case, then you have no idea what he's about to do, whether he's attached to the formation or not. And that really helps you get the defense on his heels. That's what Ben Johnson wants to do, is to be able to stay 2-3 steps ahead. That's why Colston Loveland is so incredibly important to this defense and or this offense. And the age old thing of like why more teams haven't been in these multiple tight end sets is essentially because you're pulling perhaps your best receivers off the field in favor of a tight end. Well, what happens when your tight end is your best receiver? And that's Colston Loveland. Like I fully think that Colston Loveland is going to end up being this team's top receiver this year. And I think that Rome Odunze is still going to kind of slot in at number 2, because Colston Loveland just gives you so many question marks if you're a defense.
Yeah.
And that is what Ben Johnson thrives off of, because he loves trotting out like the same look just to do different things out of it. And Colston Loveland is the one that unlocks all of that. On top of the fact you have Cole Kmet, you have Sam Roush now, and you can run
This
more
is a
of
great
these.
blocking tight end, the
It's
rookie that they drafted
yes.
out of Stanford. So this is going to be I think we're going to see some
He
3
likes
tight ends.
using his head and not just the Stanford education, but like actually engaging blockers.
Yeah, I mean, Loveland, I mentioned he was split out wide, but he was still in line a decent amount. Absolute weapon off of play action for all the reasons that you mentioned. I mean, again, like I think about all those corner routes in the postseason, the deep crossers that are available. Like he's
Those
just
are
really,
yeah.
really special player. So yeah, I think to go back, the one concern I probably have, the Braxton Jones, old friend at left tackle, Ozzy. It's a bummer because Ozzy Trapilo I thought was playing so well for
Well,
them.
apparently now he might be coming back. Like before training camp's even over. I don't like there was a footnote in an SI article about how he could be ready sooner than expected. And then Hogan Johns pressed Ryan Poles about it recently. And then Ryan Poles was like, yeah, so it turns out it's a better situation than we thought. We could like it's still on the table that he comes back during training camp. You're like, what? That would be huge, because right now I feel very, very bad about the left tackle options. I mean, not very bad. I actually think that Jedrick Wills, if he can play up to his potential for the first like essentially time, that he could like he wasn't bad in Cleveland. If we can get like first couple years Jedrick Wills in Cleveland, maybe that's what I like Braxton a lot, Mina. I
I mean, he was
just
competent for them. He was injured last year when he lost the job, and I think
his anchor he just can't anchor. He cannot anchor. He's not built to anchor. I I feel bad because I like him a lot. I like him a lot, and he was serviceable, and you can get by, especially when that person is playing next to Joe Tooney. Like the left tackle gets to play next to
yeah,
Joe Tooney, but it's
protector of the
just
year.
it's protector of the year.
Jamin retired.
Yeah,
Garrett Bradbury's now the center.
yeah.
Fine. I mean, not as good as
They
Montgomery.
drafted Logan Jones too to see
That's
if they can develop him,
yeah.
have that swing guard kind of on the interior too.
Um. All right. So top 10 offense, I believe. Very
Yes.
excited for all the reasons we described. And now we do the defense.
Do we have to?
Uh,
Do we have to?
I was really the Kobe Bryant injury just took me out. Okay,
I
so
know. I know.
for those who don't, the Bears defense, I talked about this when I talked about the Jags. Like, sorry, the Bears caught a stray here, but when you took out turnovers, they were 32nd in success rate, 30th in EPA per play, 30th in yards per play. The reason we always talk about is there's multiple studies. Turnovers tend not to repeat year to year.
They were the 2024 Packers. The 2025 Bears defense was the
Yeah.
2024 Packers.
And with the turnovers too, it's not just about it's actually less about the forcing of the turnovers and more about like who comes up with the ball, because a turnover is like inherently like chaos, and
Yes.
especially like so the Bears recovered a lot of fumble, a lot of their PBUs turned into picks. It's all stuff that just tends not to repeat year to year, especially by the way when most of the people who got the turnovers are gone. Kevin Byard's gone, Nishan Wright, who was like a weird turnover machine. Um, so the defense, they revamped the safety group. They drafted Dylan Thieneman, who I thought was a really cool pick for them at Oregon.
100%.
A very Swiss Army knife type
Yes.
player. And the idea was, okay, now we're going to play him next to Kobe Bryant, who's a veteran, who's really good in Seattle. He gets hurt. He's going to miss most of the season.
We don't know. We have no
Cam
clarity on
Lewis,
that.
maybe from Buffalo, steps in.
He gets hurt too.
Uh,
He was
then you're
hurt
like, "Okay,
the
cool,
other
the
day last
corner group is great." Oh, no, Kyler Gordon's hurt
no.
again,
Again,
and
doesn't
so
have
it's
working soft
just
tissue. Apparently just
the
does not have
premise
working
of
soft
the
tissue.
defense for me, Carmen, was that the pass rush was still gonna be bad, but
Right.
that the secondary was good enough to compensate for it, but now I question whether that premise can happen.
I'm with you. Exactly. Because and that was all of their offseason moves, their draft, like drafting Dylan Thieneman, all of that told you, telegraphed to you that that's what they were gonna bank on. And now with injuries, I am left like and I mean, I can't imagine Dennis Allen, like, just in his office, just throwing stuff at the wall, both figuratively and literally. They're trying to, like, cross-train like, Josh Blackwell is now, like, cross-trained at safety, and, like, they're trying to figure out all of these different workarounds for Kobe Bryant being out an indefinite amount of time. First, we heard 8 to 10 weeks. Now we don't know. It like they're like Ben Johnson came out, was like, I don't know where you guys got that. We're like, you know exactly where we got that. Like, I don't stop arguing with us. Just let us know what's going on with him. So yeah, I don't have a lot of optimism for the defense other than I just think that the offense is going to go out there and score 30 to 35 points a game and you might just be able to get away with it.
Um, they signed Devin Bush,
They
who was
did.
really good last
Yes.
year.
And TJ Edwards was activated just recently. So the
That's what I
linebackers you think could
feel a little
be
better about.
I hope so.
Um, Opposite Montez Sweat, this was, like, one of the big mysteries of the offseason. It's not really a mystery, but there's a lady reasons, but they didn't add pass rush,
Yeah.
which was
We'll
I hope a bet on Austin Booker, who at least has flashed for them
yeah.
as a young, the young pass rusher.
That's the optimistic kind of take on it is like, "Oh, we've got Austin Booker, but we've also been having Austin Booker for the last couple of seasons where you're like waiting for Austin Booker to take that step forward." My big thing too was you got rid of Andrew Billings. You didn't do a whole lot as far as adding to the interior of that line either to make things easier on these edge guys. Does Dio Dangbo, does he is he healthy? Does he factor into this?
That was
Like
their big signing last year, he was hurt.
he was hurt, right? So
Yeah. Again, I feel okay, Jalen Johnson's a good corner, Tyreek Stevenson's been up and down, but, like, if so they drafted Malik Muhammad, who might play
yeah,
nickel for them. It ag it I think the optimistic case, let's do this again, is that in the second half of the season, Kobe Bryant comes back and the secondary becomes a strength and the offense is able to put up leads so that they're forcing, opposing offenses to pass. Otherwise, I struggle with this group. Maybe there's a late move to be made to add to the pass rush.
yeah.
It's tough. Kinda running out of guys, actually. So,
I like, maybe at the end of training camp when like that whole timeline, that's where you start
someone
that's where you
decide.
add something, which they've done before. Or, I mean, I guess best case scenario too is like Javon Dexter on the interior takes a huge step forward and becomes a guy that can rush the passer from the middle or whatever. I Grady Jarrett is getting older and I don't know. I really I was so shocked when
They're
like
bad
with
against the run too.
I like that's the other like that's why I was so shocked when like they got Dylan Thieneman and then I just kept waiting. I was like, "All right." I'm, like, looking at all the edge guys as they're going and,
I
like
know, the draft really, like, it just didn't swing their way, I feel like, because they
right.
wanted a pass rusher, but where they were picking, there just
It never
weren't
worked out.
any, and they got taken before, and it didn't work out for them, but yeah, and Thieneman's a really good player, like, I like the pick, I think
Yes.
he's really good for them, but it is tough. Hey, Montez Sweat was good last year,
First
so
double digit, sack guy for them since 2021, Robert Quinn in 2021. So,
Quinn, the
yeah,
ageless Robert
the
Quinn.
ageless wonder who had 18 and a half sacks, I think, that year. Like, just
Alright,
an
Bears
exorbitant amount.
fans, like I said, it's basically the same. I mean, honestly, we're about to do it again shortly. Packers. All right.
Yeah.
So
Most
again, it's copy paste here. I feel much better about the offense than the
yeah.
defense. The Packers, however, have somebody walking through that door in like week 6.
Yeah.
And that's going to really, and
Yeah.
so in some ways, I feel like they're actually a little better equipped, although, I mean, the Lions already have Aiden Hutchinson, but I think the Packers have a better secondary right now than Detroit. Let's start with the offense. Really, some interesting things to discuss here. So this offense was top 10. It's been top 10 every year with Matt LaFleur, and
Yeah.
um, they let guys walk. So what used to be a like, hey, we have a million receivers and they're all equals, and
Mm.
it's an
That's our whole identity,
democracy.
and yeah,
You're the
like
number one wide receiver is Matt LaFleur. Now they're actually it's a streamlined group. You with Watson, who they paid, Matthew Golden, their first round draft pick last year, and Jaden Reed. Behind them, there's Bo Melton, Savion Williams, but Tucker Kraft appears to be on track to play week 1, which is huge. We talk about him. Questions about Josh Jacobs, potentially a suspension looming, but Marshawn Lloyd, knock on wood, seems to be healthy, finally.
I know.
There's questions about the Packers offensive line, but there's always questions about the Packers offensive
Truly,
line every year.
truly.
Jordan Morgan kicks out to left tackle. Zach Bako now, not Zach Tom,
Mhm.
is stalwart at right tackle.
Yeah.
So look, I had them as a top 10 offense. They just are. Every year they find a way to make it work. I want to pose the question for you about this Packers offense. Because again, it's on one hand, they've been so efficient and they always rank so high in every they're efficient and they're explosive. They're really like a very reliable unit. However, I tried to put myself in the mindset of like during the year when why was I getting frustrated watching them
Right.
at times?
What did you
And I
come up
wrote
with, Mina?
down,
Because
I wrote,
I'm
Matt LaFleur, do you need to run the football this much? So, okay. Next Stats tracks this thing called run rate over expectation, which they
yeah.
base on situation, formation, personnel. It's really good as opposed to just looking at flat run rates because run rates are influenced by game situation, yada, yada. The Packers were first in the league. They ran the ball based on this 15% more than expected. To put that in context, Baltimore, who we think of as like a running team, was 3%. So then I thought, well, yeah, maybe Malik Willis. Let me take out the Malik Willis games. Even higher.
Oh, no.
And they were fine running the ball. They were more efficient than explosive. But your quarterback had a 98 QBR on 3rd and long.
Yeah.
He was second in QBR in non-play action. So it's not like you have to baby him the
Right.
way.
Right.
So I guess that's what I want to posit to you. Like, I think Matt LaFleur's great. I understand also like the run game is very fun. Like there's run actions are a big part of what they do generally. There's an RPO component, all that. But like maybe little less. Like, what do you think?
No, I'm with you, especially when like they were they had top 10 in stuff rate too. Like so like there were times
There were
where
some games that were just like,
they
oh,
were not like
God.
it was not
The Eagles
working.
game. Oh, I mean, the weather was, but yeah,
Yeah.
it was
But I'm
not
just like,
working.
it
Yes,
was not working. And I'm just like, all right, can we move off of this? Like, I know I praise Ben Johnson for like his defiant sense of just like sticking with the run no matter
I'm
what.
really good at it.
But that you're really good at it. B, that's kind of like, especially when your quarterback is still developing into your system, you need to give him that safety net. This is not the case, as you just mentioned, with Jordan Love and how like this passing attack. So bottom third in rushing EPA too. Like there was just times where you were like, okay, enough. I totally am on board with that, especially when you do have all of the question marks along the offensive line that you did. And you're like, why are we? And
Right.
it made, I couldn't tell if it was like Josh Jacobs looked a little washed or it was just the overutilization or what it necessarily was in the backfield there. But
I think the line was a big part of it because that was
yeah,
like it was similar to the Lions, was kind of slept on how many different like rotation, like the injuries that they had, and we're kind of
11,
used to it
yeah.
with
I think it
Green Bay.
was,
We're just like they'll figure it out, but yeah,
yeah.
I do think it's like all right, maybe it's funny because my lesson from the let Russ cook movement at a certain point was like actually the run game was very important for Russell Wilson, but I think when you look at the Packers offense, it's not like they face a disproportionate amount of like single high coverage because of it or team stack the box.
No.
So I don't know. I think that's just something that I've been noodling with.
I no, it's the same. They're the most frustrating team in this division in so many ways because I look at all of their offensive stats too, but then that translated into what like 23 points per game. And I can't for the life of me understand why they were like not productive enough. Like they were middling in red zone percentage and whatever, but like not to the point where it would explain the fact that they had the 3rd highest explosive rates percentage. They're 4th in EPA per play. Again, middling in red zone, but, like, 23 points per game is all you have to show for it? And
Yeah.
they were 21st in time of possession too. So the offense just didn't even have the ball that long. And I'm like, how are you not sustaining drives when your offensive efficiency is so good? But like the production isn't there. It boggles my mind as to who this Packers team was. I guess Matt LaFleur is like stripping it all down this offseason, or like that's what he said is he got all of his coaches together. He said it to Jordan Rodrigue, good friend of ours, that he like this offseason was spent with his coaches just kind of like stripping it all down, and we're gonna start from square one. And however, true that is, it needs it. Something needs to happen.
I think, as far as the receiving group, the question remains, do they even have they still have a do they have a number 1?
I
'Cause
mean,
Watson
yeah, you're paying Christian Watson like a number one, but Matthew Golden, you want him
a
to take a
little bit
leap.
less. Yeah,
Yeah,
you want Golden to look like he did at the very end of the season,
right.
in the game. I will say Tucker Kraft is, like, you
Okay.
talk about Tomlin, like, he's him. Like, he is a top, I think, can absolutely be a top 3 tight end. Joey
The
was the best tight end in football until he got hurt last year. He was a monster.
the the effect that Tucker Kraft has on this offense, like I broke down like them with him on the field, with him off the field. It is equivalent to what Micah Parsons' impact is on defense. Like just the way that their offensive metrics fluctuate, their success rate fluctuates, the points that they have, their EPA, all of that stuff. Like EPA per play with him on the field, 0.12. EPA per play without him, 0.02. Like
That's
there's
going from being, like, a top 2 or 3 offense, maybe
yes,
higher, to,
to,
like,
to bottom third.
yeah.
And it's like, it's again, it's just success rate 47.4% with him, 42.5% without him, which again is that same fluctuation, even though it's, 5 percentage points, whatever it is. But like, that is how important Tucker Kraft is to this offense and
Yeah,
how much of an impact he has. So the fact that he could, in fact, be ready for week 1,
seems like it, yeah.
you don't
I
have to
mean,
lean on the wide receiver group as much because they're not as deep. And that's the biggest concern I have now.
yeah,
Like if
it's
one of those
always,
guys
I know, if one of them goes down, if
when
Watson's the
when
one
one of those
where
when
I
one
know.
of them goes.
You talk about Kraft's on-off splits, Watson's over the years are really significant, and it's not for him, it's not just him getting the ball, but his ability to stretch the field creates so much space. Like, him and Kraft, you kinda need both of them on the field at the same
Yeah,
time because Watson's the one who creates the space,
right,
and then
and
Kraft is the
Kraft
player who
goes, yeah,
takes advantage of the space.
yes, exactly.
Um, and so, like, if you could tell me that you get a full season of Watson and Kraft, I'm like, kinda set it and forget it. This is a top 6, 7 offense. I feel good about it.
Yep,
Obviously, Watson has had his injury history. Um, so yeah, I'm still very optimistic about the Packers offense. Notice I
same.
haven't even talked about Jordan Love. I'm
Yeah,
gonna do it for 1 millionth time. I think he's a top 10 quarterback, and it's pretty
agreed.
obvious.
Yes,
Um,
we're
the
on the
line
same page
continues
there.
to worry me. Is the line not worry? It's been a long time since I felt super solid about it.
Yeah,
So I think, just whether or not this Packers offense can get the ceiling, can LaFleur let the governor off a little bit? Can Watson stay healthy and Kraft? If you tell me those 2 things, and then Jordan Morgan at left tackle is a really important,
yeah,
change. And I talked about that. Packers fans, you could check out. I think he was my NFC X factor for the Packers, and I went back and watched him at right tackle, and honestly, he was pretty good.
yeah.
So, the defense. All right, here we go again. NFC
Seriously.
North, baby.
When
So,
did this happen? When did this
oh,
happen? Because, like, the way that I grew up with this division was not like, the purple people eaters and the monsters of the midway and the black and blue division, which was just running the football in defense, and now it could not be further from
so the Packers defense to me is a very simple proposition.
uh,
Can you survive until Micah Parsons returns?
correct.
I believe they were talking about like week 6, the Cowboys game.
The Cowboy, yeah.
He's gonna try to get back for that.
Oh,
But
that he's told every reporter that's asked him about it, like, "The Cowboys game, the Cowboys game, the Cowboys game."
so here's something I find really interesting about that. Okay, so I think we agree. The premise is like, all right, when you get Parsons back, it's a totally different defense. Everything changes. You saw that last year when you took him out, it completely collapsed. It was honestly a little bit dubious even with him because of some of the holes. So, new defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon. So, Jonathan Gannon in Philadelphia, the defense, sometimes much maligned for this, but it was very like, we are going to rush four. We're going to get pressure with four. We're going to play a lot of quarters behind it. We're going to try to cap explosives, but we're leaning on our front four. We're not, you know. Okay. So then he goes to Arizona where they try, he's, Nick Rallis comes with him. It's more chaos ball, honestly, but a lot of compensating for some of the weaknesses. I feel like in the first half of the season, you need Jonathan Gannon to be as like to be like a mad scientist,
Yes.
frankly, more so than what you saw in Philadelphia. Because I'm gonna tell you, they ain't getting pressure with four.
No.
Look at this group right now. Uh, sure, Van Ness is healthy, he'll be better. I believe it. Devontae Wyatt's back and healthy. It's quietly a huge loss for them. They'll get more pressure. But I kind of think your best pass, I mean, Edgerrin
Yeah.
Cooper,
That's my kind of X factor for this team.
or your strength is your safeties.
Right.
Javon Bullard, can you make him part of the rush? Can
Yes.
buy some time, confuse offenses because he's got to pull out every trick in his bag these first 6 weeks without Micah Parsons. I feel like he is quietly one of the bigger X factors in the division, Jonathan Gannon specifically.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like you have to, and he said it. He's going to devise essentially one defense for before Micah Parsons is back, and then another defense for when he returns. Because when he returns, you absolutely can just be like, my guys are better than your guys. Go. But before that, you are going to. There's all of the back level is going to be so incredibly crucial. And I do have questions on the kind of the corners of this of this team, which I've had. But you have safeties. You have three legitimate starting safeties.
Really good. This is
So
one of the
really
better
good.
safeties in
Xavier
NFL.
McKinney, Evan Williams, Javon Bullard,
Great.
do something with them. All three of those guys need to be on the field pretty
Yeah.
much at all times
Yeah.
if I'm Jonathan Gannon and I'm trying to survive without Micah
Yeah.
Parsons right now. And again, to your point, confuse offenses, buy some time for the rush to get there because we have been wanting Lucas Van Ness to kind of make that next step and make that next leap. So hopefully with him being healthy, he can actually do it. I do think Devontae Wyatt has been very underrated kind of in his Packers tenure. So like you
Losing him
said,
was huge
it
last
was.
year.
It clearly
Yeah.
it made a huge
Bullard,
difference.
it's
So
funny because the 3 safeties, they're so good too, like, they're so different skill
yeah.
sets. McKinney, so even though he
They
didn't have the
complement each
picks
other really
last
well.
year, totally, he was a true center fielder, takes, so much range.
Yes.
Evan Williams, one of the best run defending safeties in the entire NFL right now. And then Bullard, I almost feel like can Gannon find a way to use him as, like, a Derwin James
Yeah.
style, like, get him closer to
That's
the
a
line of
good
scrimmage,
it's a good
threaten to
comp.
rush him. He's really yes, like, that's your strength,
Yeah.
right?
100%.
Um they brought in Zaire Franklin to replace Quay Walker. Fine.
Yeah.
I think he'll be fine. It's funny because I feel like there's a lot of skepticism around the Packers, but I do wonder if the skepticism is a little bit of like we've been so high in this team and it's kind of the same, but I think maybe what's lost in some of that skepticism is how injured they were last year. Wyatt, Kraft, Parsons. So if all of those guys, this is a team that I find very hard to rank because I think at the end of the season they could be easily the best team in the division. But I think at the beginning of the season, I don't know. But it's crazy that they were still winning games and like competitive even without them, which again, credit to LaFleur. He's a very good coach. Yeah, I don't know, man. Corners, like you said, they're an issue. They were an issue last year. They drafted Brandon Cisse. He's really athletic, interesting, but a little bit raw in my estimation. Hargrave, Javon Hargrave switches teams. He should
Yeah.
be fine. Um, it's a reunion with Jonathan Gannon. I just realized from Philadelphia. All right,
You're really gonna make me rank these teams.
I'll go first, but I'm actually literally I've in my head I've gone back. So what complicates this is the Lions have a really easy schedule.
Right.
And if they didn't, I don't think
Laughably easy, in fact.
yeah. And I think the Lions offense is gonna be awesome. I'm so skeptical of the Bears defense. I think all these
Yeah.
offenses are gonna be awesome. And like I said, I think the Packers are gonna be really good at the end of the year.
Mhm.
Crush. Oh my god. All right. I am going to go I can't put the Lions third. That doesn't make sense with that schedule.
I'm this could end up with any order,
It
and it's
literally could.
and it's not
Those
gonna shock me.
Vikings are so weird. All right. Screw it. Let's go Lions, Packers, Bears, Vikings. I hate that. I had the Bears first in the division like a month ago. It's so stupid. I don't know what.
I keep talking about how the Vikings could win this division even, and that would not shock me. I've been also saying about the Bears, I think that they are going to have a worse record while being a better team. So, like, I could see them winning only 9 or 10 games despite the fact that they are better offensively because, like, that defense just really, really bothers me. But I also don't think that that really matters until you get to the postseason. But do you even get to the postseason? That's what throws me off with all of these teams that have these defensive question marks where I'm like, all right, your offense can carry you through the regular season, maybe, but defensive, like, I'm of the old text of defense is what wins you championships and games comes in the postseason. Anyway, I don't know. Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions. I don't know. Let's just throw that at the wall.
Wait, like in reverse. That was crazy. I don't know. I
So was
don't
that the reverse of what you said? I don't even remember what you said.
I don't even know. Next tomorrow I'm gonna rank them differently. Throw this out. Honestly, don't aggregate me. Bears fans, I'm sure you're angriest. You could easily win this division. I want to. I truly. This is the most chaotic, stupidest division in football.
Yes, we love her
All
dearly.
right. God. All right. I don't even know. I'm gonna change it tomorrow. I literally in the power hour had the Bears and Packers first every time, but then the schedule, the Lions.
The schedule of the Lions, the schedule, I mean, like the Vikings are gonna have a relatively easy schedule too. And the Bears are the number one strength of schedule. Like, it's a tough schedule that they're gonna have to go up against. So I don't even know if 30 points a game is gonna save them. But I think they're going to be a better offense. I think
they're going to be great on offense.
They're going to be really great.
They're all really good offenses. That's Carmen Vitali. Carmen, where can people check out your work? I know there's some stuff that you can't talk about just yet, but where can people find you, and then they'll learn about those things?
My Fox Sports radio show airs 3 to 5 p.m. on Central Time on Saturdays. It's 1 to 3 p.m. Pacific, and I'm doing a lot as far as like social media, but you can also catch me on a lot of local things here in Chicago on The Score, some of the various TV stations there. So yes, you mentioned some things I can't talk about yet.
All right, well,
but we will
her on all platforms, and those things will come to light soon.
Yes.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Oh my God, I hate my rankings already. I want to walk them back. I hate them. I will be back next week to talk about preseason football. It begins. And then we will finish with the AFC North. So I will catch you then. Thank you as always to the folks at Omaha Productions, Kirsten Sebecki, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Bash. See you guys later.